Hey everyone, I'm here with Stuart Norman, the CEO of AINDT with me. He's done a lot of varied roles and he's just been about 5 months into this role now. Tell us a little bit about yourself and why you've ended up here at AINDT.
John, first of all, thanks for having me.
No worries.
That's great. How did I get it? Well, I applied for the role, like you would apply for any role. And the process, like any employment process, interviewed, did my research into the industry. And it's interesting, and most people who are watching this and have been in the industry, they talk about NDT to other people and people's eyes glaze over.
Yeah.
When I started looking at it, I was like, well, this is fascinating. The engineering side of things, the technology, where things are going, and I can give an example of a recent conference I went to in Perth, and it's not just the testing, it's the robotics to get the testers to where they need to get.
Yeah.
So that is fascinating to that point. But to get to being CEO at AINDT, I've spent about 15 years at different peak bodies across a range of industries. Some have similarities, some don't. But most peak bodies really have a major sort of core role in what they need to do, whether it's representing members to government or informing, educating, holding members, people to standards. The amount differs for each peak body, but the core business is pretty much the same.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Cool. So some of the places where you've done that is like you've got a big member group, and they might have a vested interest. They're all paying, and some of the other member groups in the bus association, they're all volunteer groups. So you've got to have a good appreciation for people who are on the payroll, I guess, and then people who are willing to spend their time and a bit more take it to heart and wear their heart on the sleeve.
In all of those, they're all member bodies,
right?
So there would be a board of directors which were elected by the membership. So each peak body I've been in, and you'll find it everywhere, the directors are volunteers.
Right.
Now that's good and bad, because you can get people who, especially in a position of a directorship, where they're driven by self-interest, or you can get directors who are absolutely 100% driven for the best for the industry. And you can get a combination of both. I'm happy to say that I believe our current board's intentions at heart are definitely in the right place.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed working with all of them. They have different levels of experience. Some small business, some from big corporates, some are from training.
Yeah.
But they've been really helpful to me for someone not from the industry.
Yes. Yeah.
And offered me guidance, but I've also really enjoyed at different times about other aspects. I've said, well, what do you know? Because you actually got more experience than us in certain other aspects of the business.
So you've got all these transferable skills, I guess, without trying to, I suppose some people might want to impart all the NDT knowledge to you and get you up to speed about all the different methods and all the standards and things like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's someplace, I guess it's irrelevant, because there's so much transferable knowledge on how to actually build a right corporation or a right structure and how to execute things.
Yeah. I'll probably give a different example than talking about NDT, because I don't believe I've got the right knowledge enough to talk about that in depth, and I'll probably get something wrong. But I was at NECA, which is National Electrical and Communications Association, so the peak body for electrical contractors.
Yeah.
And I ran a national program called Eco Smart Electricians, which was really nationwide push when renewables and energy efficiency went crazy.
Righto. Yeah.
And that was an interesting one, because I had to know the government policy inside and out. Did the electrical contractor need to know the government policies inside or out, or feed in tariffs, or what was coming? No. But then we sort of had in the middle where we actually had to know about standards. And when solar panels started going crazy and there were governments giving out left, right and centre money for solar panels, and there's people, especially in our CM industry, who are doing thermography on solar now, no, it's still not being done overly well. But there was no requirement to put a circuit breaker away from the roof. So if it caught on fire and the switchboard was on fire, there was nothing you could do.
Yeah.
You actually need to have an isolator somewhere where you could go bang. Because if part of it's on fire and it's daytime, solar panels are still generating power.
Yeah.
So then you've got electricity and fire and water, and so it recipe for disaster. So I suppose I have to get my technical knowledge up to a point. But that's only imparted to me from people in the industry, because I did not have the background to say, yep, we need isolators for every solar PV, and where do you put those isolators?
Yeah.
So there is the governance side of a peak body, which is my responsibility. I need to know some of the standards and aspects. When it comes to the practical, I'll leave it to the experts, which is clearly I'm not the expert.
So yeah, that's what the board's there for, I guess.
Yep, and that's why we have the certification board.
Yeah.
And we've got different committees, and we've got standards committees. Clearly the CEO cannot, no matter who it is, cannot know the intricacies of all of that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to know the minute detail of some sort of UT process for a weld for a rail line. I'm not going to know that.
Yeah.
Do I know that?
Maybe not all the technicians might not know that themselves.
But I know that rail needs to be inspected.
Yeah.
And there's potential for great danger. I mean, I'm old enough now to remember Granville, which I think that maybe people have forgotten about.
Okay.
But if my understanding is, if that had been tested properly and been kept and maintained and been aware of, that incident may not have happened.
Yeah, cool. It's funny you mentioned the solar panels as well, because just recently at the Sydney Aquatic Centre, 2,500 people had to be evacuated because the whole solar panel system was alight. Yeah, so it is a bit of an issue.
Yep.
In the industry, in that, I suppose, that industry, and I guess our NDT industry is not immune to problems.
True.
And I suppose you've got to look at put out fires and look at things and figure out how our industry can keep at a high level of competence in it.
And this is one of those aspects of AINDT which I think can be not misunderstood but laid aside, is that we also look after the condition monitoring industry. And there are some people who are certified to do both, and that's great, but there are other people who are certified and are very clearly NDT, and we've got NDT clearly in our name, and forget maybe that we've got a good number of certified and people and members who concentrate on the CM stuff.
And that's coatings, vibration, and thermography.
Yep.
Is there anything else in that?
Noise.
Yeah, noise.
Yeah, and brings also some visual aspect into it.
Yeah.
I recently went to a thermography day where there was actually a lot spent on solar PV and switchboards with the use of thermography, and I really enjoyed it because probably the reason I enjoyed it is I actually understood it from a past life, that when they put it up there and that they hadn't wired it correctly and they hadn't put the right size breakers in and did it and load. So I sort of got that. Hopefully in the next couple of years I'll get there when I see some mag particles and those sorts of things, which I want to learn. I mean, I do. I want to go out, I want to spend time with the members, I want to know a level of something. I don't want to be stuck in the office being ignorant of what everyone does.
Yeah, I suppose you've got to, it's got to be a challenge for you to find that balance of like working at the grassroots and having some level, grassroots level, and then at what point do you say bring the most value to the paying members or the paying group on what is going to essentially bring the most value to the industry, whether it's is it through membership or is it through alternative ways of more people in the industry, better awareness, things like that. I mean, there must be a challenge trying to figure out through your strategy right now.
I'll probably talk a bit today about long-term view, and I've taken this role on because I see incredible potential, and there's great people and there's potential. It's also an industry that's not going away. If anything, it's an industry that's going to get bigger and broader, and the technology is exciting.
Yeah.
The technology excites me. It doesn't matter what the technology is. Do I need to know how to use it? No. Do I need to know how it works? No. But do I love seeing it in action? Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah.
So, broader view for me is I'm there to look after the members and the governance, the members, the commerciality side of AINDT. We need to have, and we are in negotiation with some at the moment, to be on the technical side of it in our accreditation services manager who knows more of that technical side. My long-term view is to give members greater value, give them a reason. Now that might be to the business owner, which I understand because I've done that before. The business owner who runs a team of 36 guys out in the field is in essence not really that, while what they do is different, what they do in running their business is no different to an electrical contractor running a team of 36. They've got jobs, well, they've got to win jobs, they've got to retain staff,
Yeah.
they've got to have the right equipment, they've got to have the right insurances, they've got to make sure that everyone's supervised, got the right training, and at the same stage still make money.
Yeah.
So that's what excites me. But what also excites me is to know that the person who's 2 or 3 years in 15 years, hopefully, or could be that person running their own business as well.
Yeah.
So the member proposition's got to work for the businesses, and it's also got to work individually for a member.
Yeah.
And that's different to different generations. What it means to a 50-year-old Stuart Norman will mean something different to a 25-year-old John Smith from Mandurah.
Yeah.
All he might want as being a member of AINDT is, well, can you get 3% off a new ute?
Yeah, maybe.
But you know what, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
If he wants to get himself a new ute, let's try and help that. Because that might help that individual once he gets his own ute. It might be the start of his business.
Yeah.
And I know I shouldn't keep saying he, but we are predominantly, it's a male industry,
Yep.
dominated industry, and we're not saying that we don't.
That's typical for every industry, I think, right now.
Yeah.
It's starting to get a little bit more open-minded anyway. I've seen plenty of ladies out there,
Yeah.
and it's good to see, but that's it's just got to be normal, right? No one's really going to care. So tell me a little bit more. If your goal is to bring value to the business owners, middle management, technicians, grassroots level, I suppose that's different value. People value things differently. So where is your priority target? Who is your priority right now to bring the most value?
Okay.
And what does that value look like?
So the priority is actually not focused on that member aspect right now.
Right.
Our priority is to build foundations so that we can do that. So really our priority, and it was voted on at the recent EGM, is to get our governance structure correct.
Yeah.
Governance structure is the foundation of what we do. We are in a very fortunate position as a peak body to be financial. There's a great responsibility on me not to take that financial position for granted and blow it.
Yeah.
There's also it's a great responsibility to make sure that we invest it in the right areas to get the best return for members and for the organisation.
And
One of the key, so we're really working on our governance and our foundations and setting ourselves up for the future, because it could be quite easy to jump ahead.
Yep.
So what we're investing in right now, we're setting up looking at our governance. The governance will set up our constitution, our committees, etc. At the same time, we're looking at our operations. So we're looking to heavily invest in our IT. And this will help members, not directly straight away, but that foundation of having a proper IT system will give us the benefit later to the members to be able to go, right, this group's the business owner, this is the type of membership they've got, this is what we can offer them. this is the person who's just got their level 2s, this is the membership proposition for them. To do that without getting all the groundwork done at the start would create headaches, and also means we have to employ people when in a day of technology we should be able to try and automate sort of certain things.
Yeah.
So my aim is in the next 12 months or less, hopefully less, I'm giving myself 12 months because IT can, is that we have the best certification system in the NDT world.
Right. At a global level?
At a global level.
Yeah.
We are, and the board are heavily supportive that we invest in having the right systems in place from a technology aspect to manage our certification system and our members.
Yeah.
That reaps rewards later on. So what we've got is we've been a real voluntary organisation with people giving us so much of their time and their money and their resources and their knowledge, and we don't want to, I'm not taking that for granted, and we're not trying to say that was wrong. But in my view, coming in with fresh eyes, we've got potential to be more than just a voluntary group. We still need our volunteers, we still want people involved, but we've got the potential to be better, more efficient, and provide better outcomes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if we can do that with the use of technology, while we've got some funds there to do it, we should do it.
Yeah, definitely. I was talking to you last night to a couple of guys who've been part of the volunteer group in New South Wales since 1979 and 1981, and it's like, okay, they're still there now, right? They're ready to retire, and obviously there'll be a bit of a we have to get our processes and procedures in place just so we can keep holding events without these guys who've been doing it for donkey's years. Yeah. So I suppose we're going to be at a global level one of the best. Who right now is a country that we should look to say they're doing it really well?
I think you can look at the Germans, who we want to be efficient. We want to be professional and efficient. Having volunteers doesn't mean we can't be professional and efficient.
No, not at all. Yeah.
So there's some things we can definitely learn off the Germans.
Yeah.
I think we've got an okay system at the moment. It's okay. But I don't see around the world that anyone's got something outstanding, other than I do look at the Germans and go, oh, that works and that's efficient.
Yeah.
I think we can, if it's not an arms race, we're not trying to outdo to each other, but there's no reason why we can't be right at the head of the NDT world with our systems and our processes. Because when you think broadly, we're talking about some of these guys in New South Wales moving on because they're retiring and they've been wonderful for us. It's a way to engage the younger generation is through technology. Well, if we don't have the basis to engage,
we just lose them.
We lose them.
Yeah.
And we lose the essence of what is NDT or the AINDT. And in some ways, I'm a big footy supporter, and I look at the way that big AFL clubs in particular run membership. And members come and go. But what are they doing? How do they run their membership system? How do they retain members? What different types of members have they got? I mean, I'm not saying when you go to this level, but there are some football clubs having pet membership.
Oh yeah, Western Bulldogs.
Well, yes. So we're not necessarily to bring it. We want every man and his dog. Not really, no. But we can't tailor what we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
looking at the AFL and what they do at the club level, it's probably good. It lays out a good foundation and a structure that you can say, well, what can we duplicate and what can we leave behind?
Well, in some ways, peak bodies aren't that different to, say, AFL clubs, in that you've got a volunteer board of directors, you've got volunteer committees, you have a paid executive, paid employees, and then you have another group of volunteers that actually pay to go and watch and support.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different, but there are still volunteers and there's still commerciality aspects around stuff. And so you can't go, oh, we're a volunteer organisation, not worry about money.
Yeah.
You've got to be commercially minded, but at the same
That's right.
time, you know, we're not a big corporation that you can just throw the credit card around really willy-nilly, because whatever we do is members' money.
Yeah.
And in essence, we're a not-for-profit. So it's a balancing act. So I mean, I'll give you an example. I mean, last night I was in Newcastle for the New South Wales branch event.
Yeah.
Now, I had the debate in my own mind, is that a good use of members' money to fly from Melbourne to Newcastle, spend the night with the members, do this podcast with you, have another meeting in Sydney, or should I sit at the desk and maybe do it via Teams?
Yeah.
And these are the constant not-for-profit discussions you have.
Yeah.
Because you're working with volunteers, but you're not a volunteer yourself. So it's always a balance.
100%. Yeah.
And the way I look at the certification scheme and the way I look at not-for-profits in general, if we don't have integrity's got to be crucial.
Mm-hmm.
Some people may or may not like, but there's still got to be integrity around everything that we do. And we can't take shortcuts because we know someone, they're a good bloke, or they're a mate, or we've known them for years.
Yeah.
We can't run we can't run professionally and retain integrity according to our JASAN's accreditation, according to our Schedule 2 with the ICNDT. Integrity's got to be the block of what we do.
Yeah. So I suppose that's like everything then. You've got to build relationships with people. You can't always build it behind the desk. Even though technology is amazing and you can do a lot, but you still got to be out there.
You still got to be out there.
It's like, I think for some people they'll happily say, yeah, no problem. That's how it is. You've just got to build relationships. At the same time, it is so convenient to just sit back. It's so easy, and just market or just send out communications or things like that.
Send an email. And
So I think there'll be a little bit of leeway there for you between everyone. Someone will definitely say something.
Oh, look,
and
they might even question.
But it won't matter, right? There's a bigger picture to deal.
Am not 100% confident. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So there's. We'll go from the top. Sure. We might end up here.
Okay.
So there's a couple of industries that are happening, that have critical value to Australia. There's hydrogen, nuclear, aviation, marine. It's just whatever's producing energy, whatever's securing Australia, things like that. What industries are particularly of interest to you right now?
Energy is something that I've always been interested in, even when I haven't been working in energy. Maybe it's part of my age, and that growing up in Victoria in the 80s, we had pretty much the cheapest gas in the world.
Yeah.
And I love gas. And I will be a proponent and pusher of the virtues of gas forever.
I think Victoria need that support right now.
Well, we could, and I think Gippsland does, because they don't want SO closed down, and we need, and gas is so readily available.
Yeah.
Nuclear is of interest. It's got its pros and cons, but you can't just count out all of its pros because you've got one con. So there's some aspects around nuclear. I have a history of lobbying for water. Nuclear requires significant water.
Yeah. So
you can't put it in the Murray-Darling Basin where our farmers need the water. We're taking water off farmers, water off food production. So there's aspects around that. Defence is interesting. Now, whether the subs ever get built or don't get built, who knows?
That's interesting conversation.
But in defence, there's obviously aspects around certification and what certification is being held, whether it's going to be on the frigates, whether it's on some of the aerospace stuff with the F-35s, whether it's the AUKUS sub deal, whether it's even just the making of the Bushmasters.
Yeah.
Defence spending is going to increase, unfortunately, because we have to. We need to defend ourselves. We need to build up our defence capabilities. The budget says that. So defence is interesting for us. Energy is interesting for us. And there's probably a side one too in arts and heritage, where the Canadians are leading on arts and heritage and using NDT testing techniques to verify and give some integrity to some of the heritage claims made on land or artefacts, etc. So that's actually really interesting. Clearly it's big in Europe because they find artefacts.
Yeah.
They're
They're a lot older country.
A lot older country. The
Australia.
Canadians are doing it very much around some of the native Indigenous peoples and verifying if they can use technology to go, right, we can actually assist. This is a site that is significant. Let's go ahead and do that. So that's an area of interest for us. I still think transport is a big one.
Like rail.
Clearly the inland rail now, it's a little bit like the subs. Will it ever get built to the point it's meant to get built to?
Yeah.
But we need it. So we probably need to step up a little bit in rail. I've come out of the bus industry. I'm fascinated that these chassis that we import aren't regularly tested, NDT tested,
right?
Given the number of the general public that are on buses, and interesting that these buses are run for 18 years. Now, there may be nothing wrong with them. They may not be able to test every year, I'm not saying that. But I find it fascinating that state-owned buses, who clearly have the liability to keep the public safe,
yes,
are running 18-year-old assets that aren't being tested. Okay, maybe the welds are being visually looked at.
Yeah.
But if you took that to the resources sector, they're not running 18-year-old assets without doing some rigorous testing.
Yes.
So I find that one quite fascinating as well. So what we've got energy, defence, transport, and arts and heritage of areas that are clear of interest to me. There's probably some areas I've missed out on.
Yeah.
But when you think about it, if you cover all of those, that is a fair bit of our industry. Significant part of it.
And do you think we need to take that to a level of where we need to have someone champion NDT at a country level, at a federal level, like in Canberra?
I think there's a time and a place. And I'll give a really good example. Recently, a federal minister said that we couldn't have a nuclear energy industry up because we'd have to start from scratch. Now, I'm calling BS.
Yeah.
Because there are people within our industry who have clearly the knowledge around atomic energy, who are on committees internationally and go and do that work internationally.
Yeah.
And I do know that we're not the only industry that has nuclear capabilities and nuclear knowledge. We just export it.
That's right. Yeah, yeah.
So when I hear a federal minister try and use it for their own political gain, saying we'd have to start from scratch, no, we don't. I'm sorry. Don't use that as an excuse. Is it too expensive? Or maybe. Let's run the numbers. But don't use that we don't have the skills base as your first go-to.
Yeah, go-to, definitely. And do you think then at a AI NDT level that we should have that voice there to just kind of clarify that there are quality systems in place, we have the quality personnel in place,
my history has been a lot of lobbying on peak bodies, and peak bodies smaller than the AINDT.
Okay.
And I have been able to facilitate change. But going to Canberra can be a complete and utter waste of time. Like you're talking to public servants who know nothing. You're talking to politicians who couldn't care less about getting elected the next time round, and that's on all sides of politics. That's just not particular on one.
Yeah.
So, but when there's something pressing, you actually got to have the skills and the knowledge to know what to do. And you know, the recent redoing of the federal government's policy on gas is music to our ears, because I was thinking I might have to, not that we are the sole voice, but other peak bodies are the big voices. We just tag along.
Yeah.
Training, skill shortage. Is there something that we can do? Can we get on the skill shortage list to help if we need to have migration? Is there anything we can go with some stats? Our training is effectively private operators. Yet there's trades getting squillions of dollars for training for trades which are very cyclical. Ours is not cyclical, ours is pretty constant.
Yeah.
So, look, it's a time and a place to go to Canberra. It's not fun, it's not sexy, but there will be a time and a place, and when that time and a place comes, we know what to do. We've got the skills to be able to do it.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. Is there anything else that you'd like to bring out or talk about? That's
No, other than I'm actually enjoying the role. I really am, and I'm finding the members and what the members do fascinating. I'm finding the technology that's coming in fascinating. Some of the skills or some of the standards is fascinating in a different way. Like it really is detailed, knowledgeable skill set. So I'm really enjoying meeting people, and really thank you for this opportunity to engage. We want to engage in different ways. This is one way of doing it.
Absolutely. Yeah, cool. Thanks for coming along.
Terrific.
Thanks for hanging around this long, and we'll see you around.
Cheers.